Resin gives a really beautiful glass-like finish to your painting, and it's fairly easy to use as long as you have a few supplies and follow a few simple guidelines. You're going to need your painting that you want to finish, a paper towel or a lint-free cloth to wipe off your painting, a level to make sure your painting is flat and level on its surface, tape measure if you don't already know the dimensions of your painting, resin. I'm using art resin, and it comes in 1 bottle of resin and 1 bottle of resin hardener, which you mix together to form the solution that you pour over your painting. Disposable gloves, at least 2 cups for mixing and measuring, and some craft sticks for mixing and spreading. A tweezers or a toothpick to pick out any little bits of hair or dust you see in the resin. And a heat gun or a kitchen torch for popping the bubbles in the resin after you pour it. Lastly, you are going to need a box or something big enough to cover over your painting when you're done, to keep out any dust from settling in your resin while it's curing. I'm going to bring you now down to my workspace, and we will go ahead and go through the process together so you can see it from start to finish. First, begin by wiping down your painting to make sure there's no dust or dirt on it. If your canvas is large, place a piece of cardboard behind it to support the canvas, as the resin is heavy and will weigh down the center if there's not something flat underneath. My painting is still propped up on these pins from when I painted it, and so I left them in along with the tape, and I will take all of that off when the resin is just about cured tomorrow. Next, make sure your painting is level. Resin is self-leveling, and it will accumulate on one side if the painting isn't perfectly level. Next, find out the size of your canvas. This is a 14 by 14. And then go on artresin.com/calculator. Type in the dimensions of your piece, and it will tell you exactly how much resin to use to cover that surface area. I need 7 ounces, so I am going to pour 3.5 ounces of resin in 1 cup and 3.5 ounces of resin hardener in the other cup. Put on your gloves. It's really important that your skin is covered when you're working with resin. Also, make sure your painting is on a surface where there's a trash bag or some kind of plastic below to catch any drips. You don't need to shake the resin beforehand. Make sure you don't shake it, actually. You can warm it slightly to decrease the amount of air bubbles you have in the resin. I put these jugs inside a pot of warm water for about a half an hour before doing this project. You want to pour resin at room temperature. And the warmer it is, the quicker the resin will cure. Once you pour the resin out of the bottles, you have about a 45-minute working time before the resin starts to cure. After it starts to cure, you don't want to touch it. Because then you will be messing up that really smooth, glassy surface we're going for. So I'm pouring the hardener in the other cup. You want to measure by volume. So like I said, I needed 7 ounces according to the Resin Art calculator. And so that's 7 ounces total. So half of that is hardener, half of that is resin. And you want to make sure they're exactly the same amount of resin and hardener in order for it to cure correctly. Next, pour both cups into another mixing cup or pour one into the other. I'm going to pour it right down in my craft stick slowly to decrease the amount of bubbles again. Set aside about half an hour to resin a piece this size, so you're not rushing, because it is a little bit of a process, although it's not hard. Trying to make sure I get everything out of this cup so it's equal measurements. And then set your timer for 3 minutes at least. You're going to mix this slowly for 3 minutes. Make sure when you're mixing that you are scraping the sides and the bottom. It looks cloudy at first, and after the 3 minutes are up, it will be clear, crystal clear, although you will probably still see some bubbles. I mix mine for 4 minutes just to make sure. After 3 to 4 minutes of mixing, this is what the resin looks like. It's clear, there's lots of bubbles. Now we're ready to pour this on our canvas. The area where you are doing this is important. Try to be next to a window where there's natural light coming in so you can see if anything is on the surface of the resin after you pour it. Also, it's helpful to place a board or a piece of cardboard underneath your painting so you have the option of moving your painting to another room to dry, unless you're going to leave it right where it is. Also, you want to make sure the room that you're in has good ventilation, because this can be a little bit strong. The fumes can be strong. Next, this part is easy and fun. We're just going to pour the resin onto our piece and spread it out however you choose. You can spread it right to the edge. I'm going to go over and also coat the sides of my painting. I love that the resin is self-leveling. So you just have to spread it to where you want it to go, but you don't have to level it out and make sure it's completely flat. It will do that on its own. If the resin's at room temperature, you have 45 minutes of working time before the resin begins to cure. If the resin is warmer, the time will decrease a little bit. But you shouldn't have to rush. 45 minutes is plenty of time to cover your piece. To cover the sides, you can use your popsicle stick, or you can use a disposable craft sponge brush, or you can just use your gloved hand. I'm looking at an angle here so I can see with the light shining on my painting if there's any spots I missed or any hairs or dust particles that got in there. Looks good. Next, take your torch, holding it a couple inches above the canvas, move it back and forth, keep it moving so it doesn't singe the resin, and just watch all those air bubbles popping. You might have to experiment a little bit how close and how far away from your canvas. Start a little bit further just to be safe. Also do the sides. I'm going to take a clean popsicle stick and I'm going to run it underneath the side of the painting just to kind of take off a lot of those drips because I don't want them to dry like that. You're still going to get a few drips because unless you come back later and keep scraping. Just scraping some of the excess and adding it back to the top just so I don't waste. I'm seeing some more air bubbles, so I'll go over with the torch again. The bubbles will continue to resurface for a little while, so if you can just kind of check back and babysit this for a few minutes, 10 or 20 minutes or so, just come back and give it a quick once over with your tweezers and your torch to make sure there's nothing in the surface and to make sure the bubbles get popped. It's just a beautiful, flawless finish. It makes the paint colors pop out and it's just really gorgeous. After you're all done messing with it over the next few minutes, then you want to take your box and carefully cover over the top. Leave it there for about 24 hours is when it should be hard to the touch, and even a little bit before that you can come back and peel the tape off the bottom just to get that out of the way before it's glued really hard as the resin completely cures. So after 24 hours it is hard to the touch, and after 72 hours it should be completely finished curing. So that is the process of applying resin as a top coat to finish your acrylic pours. Here is the finished product of this piece that we resined. It's beautiful and smooth, and it has a glass-like surface. As you can see, the process of resining is pretty simple. It just requires a little bit of time, and also the resin itself is a bit of an investment, but I think it really takes your artwork up a notch. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Feel free to leave anything in the comments, and I will also put helpful links and information in the description box below. Thank you for joining me. Take care. God bless. I'll see you next time.